All right, here we go. So let's whiz through this fairly quickly. Give me a shout on Facebook or Instagram if you need me to slow down, whatever the case may be. Okay, so essentially pretzels bread. This is what we're going to do. All right, so in a bowl, I need to refresh my memory myself. We're going to put in a bowl 360 millilitres of warm/hot water. All right, so the measuring jug 360. I know it's quite specific, but it's quite specific. All right, so literally 360, just hot water from that tap is fine, hot, warm. $360. Okay, so 360 of warm hot water. Don't boil it, don't use a kettle, but from the tap is absolutely fine. Right, so there's my bowl. Here's my water. I'm now putting the water in the bowl. Okay. 1 second. All right, sorry, I just had to mute someone's messages who were saying silly nonsense. As is always the way. All right, we then are going to need, so in the water, put is 1 packet, well actually 2 packets, pardon me, 2 whole packets of yeast. Okay, so with my ones, they come in 2 halves, whoops, so it's about a teaspoon per packet more or less. Okay, so what you now do is 1 packet of yeast goes in the warm water, and the second packet of yeast goes in the warm water. If you've got a pot of yeast, you want just over 2 teaspoons, so like a heaped 2 teaspoons. Yeah, if that makes sense. Okay. What we're now going to do, at this point, we're going to get a saucepan and we're going to melt our warm water. All right, so Karis, do not worry. What you're now going to do is you're going to get yourself a measuring jug and you're going to measure 360 millilitres, so 360 mils of warm hot water or warmer hot water. Yeah, you can. So warm hot water, and you pour that in a bowl. Then you're going to tip on 2 packets of yeast. Okay, so 360 water, 2 packets of yeast. Now with our butter, it says we need about 1 tablespoon of butter. 1 tablespoon in like other measurement is 15 grams. All right, so you need 15 grams of butter, and that's actually probably too much. Let me just measure mine, show what 15 grams looks like. Oh no, actually, better right. So I'm now going to put my butter in a saucepan, and I'm going to melt it, okay, because that's got to go in as well. If you've got a microwave in your kitchen, that could be quicker. Mine's out there, so I'm not going to bother to do that. All right, so 360 of warm water, 2 packets of yeast, about 15 grams or 1 tablespoon of butter you're going to melt. So that should be happening. I'll say this a few times, don't panic if you're thinking, oh God, it's going too quick. I'm going to add to the yeast 1 teaspoon of salt and 1 tablespoon of sugar. You can either use white sugar or brown sugar, matters not. 1 tablespoon, just find my measuring spoons. So let me get this sorted and then I can go through it with you again. At the flour, notice nothing happened to the flour at all. So 1 tablespoon of sugar goes in. So, just to recap then, 1 tablespoon of butter, absolutely our start. So I'll just get rid of this rubbish quickly. Let's get rid of that. Remember, bowls be clean. If you haven't washed your hands, by the way, you need to do it before you get your hands in. In the bowl, we have 360 mils of water. All right, so 360 mils of warm water, warm or hot water. I then tipped in 2 whole packets of yeast, so they're silver packets normally. If you haven't got a packet, you've got a box, it's 2 teaspoons of yeast, that goes in there. 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 tablespoon of sugar, and I've just melting now 1 tablespoon of butter. All right, I can go through that again in a second. Hello. Hello everyone who are joining us. if you look at the yeast in your bowl, you'll see it will start to bubble. It will start to kind of move a little bit, and then obviously yeast is asleep. But when you activate it with hot water, so like all bacteria, because it is a form of bacteria, it needs warmth and time and food. The warmth is the water, the food is the sugar and the salt, and obviously a little bit of time to kind of activate it. All right. Hello, Swandico again. Right. So just for those who are a little bit late, in my bowl, so literally in this bowl here, I have 360 mils of warm water, 2 packets of yeast, 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 tablespoon of sugar. Once you have your melted butter, and someone's just asked this, your melted butter, that goes into the bowl also. Okay? Get that out of the way. Is everyone, let's move this as well, don't need that. Yes, that's right. Everyone good? A teaspoon of salt. Any other questions before we carry on? Yes, you can use self-raising flour instead. That's fine, that'll make very little difference, actually. Right, so normally with these things, you'd add the wet to the dry, but actually we're gonna add the dry to the wet in this instance. Just be mindful that we won't necessarily use all the flour that you've weighed out, right? You may do. Now the flour is 500 grams of flour. All right, this is an American recipe and it says all purpose is plain flour as a normal rule. All right, so it's 1 tablespoon of sugar, Miss Upton. All right, so it's 360 water, 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 tablespoon of sugar, the butter, so 15 grams of butter, or 1 tablespoon of butter, and 2 packets of dried yeast. Okay, then we have our bowl of 500 grams of flour. Now at this point, we're going to add, just checking myself, okay, we're going to add, let's go half the flour straight in. Don't do it all at once because it might be too dry. Half the flour. I would initially get a spoon, and move this way so YouTubers can see. I'm going to slightly turn the camera around. Okay, there we go. Well, okay, so spoon. And we're going to start mixing this around. What we're looking for initially is a sticky paste, and basically we're going to keep adding flour until it gets to the consistency of something that we can roll out. Oh, hello Melody. I'll miss that too. So look, obviously that's, if you look at that very quickly, that's too wet, obviously to roll out, but I've still got more flour. But don't just add it all, right? So don't add all the 500 grams. You might need 480. It depends, all right? So let's put some in. Notice I've left a little bit. So basically you need a bread dough which is going to be suitable to roll out. All right, that's the plan of action. This is where it's difficult doing something that isn't, I'm not with you, because you know, it's difficult to kind of see. Right, now at the minute, as you can see, mine is still quite sticky. So I'm going to need to add my other flour. Hopefully you've got a little bit of spare flour, because it's possible you might need a tiny bit more. Now what you're looking for is a dough. You see that? That's a little bit sticky, so actually I'm going to have to get a little bit more flour, all right, which is not a problem. Let me get it in my hand. Let's get some flour first. Thing with flour, just by the way, is that because it's all produced slightly differently, some flours will actually soak in a lot more liquid than other ones, all right? So often on a recipe where it says a very specific amount and you think, well, that hasn't worked, that's because of the type of flour that you've got. The bicarb soda comes later. Don't worry about the bicarb soda at all, okay? So someone's asked about the oven. If you do have a second, although we're going to have to need, you've got a way to go yet, you need to preheat the oven. It's really high, the oven. So it's going to go on 200, all right? So the oven's going to go on 200. So if you've got a spare hand and you're near the oven, turn it on to 200 degrees. All right, so 200 degrees. And the bicarb comes later. Don't worry about that, as does the other sugar and the cinnamon. All right, we're just making pretzels at the moment. So if I get this in my hand, can you see it's a little bit too sticky? All right, so it's gonna be quite difficult to knead. All right, so use your common sense. You might need a little bit of flour on there just to stop it sticking out. At this point, make sure you've cleaned the table. You're probably gonna need to get it out on the table. All right. And what you do, I think like we've done before, is you need to knead this slightly. Now all kneading does is it spreads all the ingredients around equally and it starts the yeast kind of moving and generating, etc. Okay, I'm just going to give you 1 sec. I'm just going to get mine to the right point. So another more sprinkle of flour. Use common sense. If it's obviously too wet and you're spreading it all over the table, it needs more flour. All right, but also you don't want to dry it out too much. This is meant to be a kind of a Play-Doh, pliable dough. All right, so just quickly and look at some of the comments. When you knead, just a reminder, there's no real way of doing it, but you want to stretch it out and put it back. Stretch it, put it back. All right, use both hands or one hand, whatever you're good with. Tiny bit sticky is fine. Okay. And actually, you are going to need that bowl in a second or two, all right? So you will need that bowl. Let me just see what's going on. Gas mark, okay, it's a good question, that. Gas mark is 6. I think, just checking, yes. So the gas mark is 6. All right. I'm going to check the YouTube comments in a sec. Again, be adaptive, right? Just because the recipe says 500 grams and it's still too wet, add a little bit more. If you need to, of course, don't just because if you don't. Notice, if you can see, when I'm kneading it on the table, it's not sticking on the table. There's a little bit on my fingers, but that's not a major deal. And you will knead it for about 1 minute, minute and a half maybe, don't have to go too mental. Okay, just gonna stop 1 second. Any issues? You're still adding flour, okay, fine. Okay, so you can see, so what you'll end up, if I get this quite close to this camera initially, spongy, soft, not sticky as such. See that? Pliable, all right? What we're gonna do now, and this is where there's a little bit of downtime, if you need to catch up, is I'm just gonna put this in the bowl and leave it to the side for a couple of minutes. And what will happen is the yeast will start to activate, okay? So I'm gonna let it catch up. I'm gonna wash my hands, but there is something else to do while we're waiting as well. But let me just wash my hands first. I'm not going to worry about cleaning the table actually, because in a second we've got to roll out the pretzels. Alright, so it's not actually worth doing the table. It should be plain flour actually, but it won't make much difference if it's plain or self-raising, to be honest. Right, you've got a few choices now, well 2 choices. If you want to poach them in water, so traditionally pretzels, when you eat pretzel, it's kind of got that slightly kind of spongy, not stringy, but kind of spongy texture. It's a textural thing. You poach them in the water. All right, so this is what I'm going to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm just literally going to get the saucepan I had a minute ago with the butter, because I need some butter. And I'm going to half fill that. Just half fill that with water. What I'm then going to do is add, now can I say and apologise about this? I think I said baking soda, which I think a lot of people assume is baking powder. It isn't, it's bicarb, okay? However, baking soda will be okay because it does have bicarb, but it does have other stuff as well. Okay, so then we've got some bicarb. You want, pardon me, so with the bicarb, or the baking powder, it's around 120 grams, all right? It's kind of, I would say it's fairly rough. I've actually got an American cup here. That's an actual measurement. Well, when you see cups on an American recipe, it doesn't mean the cup as such, although it is based, I think, on a coffee cup. It is an actual measurement, all right? So the bicarb goes in the water, like that. And what's gonna happen is I'm now gonna put that on the heat, and we need that to start simmering, okay? So I'm gonna wait a second. Make sure everyone's okay. I said 100 grams, I said, yeah, roughly 100 grams. Yeah, it's fine. All right, I'm gonna give you a second. The baking powder is fine. Yes, it's not perfect, but it's fine. It will, do. Hello Maddie Vesey, how are you? Pan with water, and what you're now going to do is simmer that. So we're going to poach the pretzels. Let's start making the pretzels, okay? So what you now do then, you might need a little bit more flour. I have to say, this all depends on how big you want your pretzel, which I guess is logical, on how much you're going to turn this, how much you cut this into. So let me have a quick look, one sec, get my knife. I would say, so we've got in half. Right, I would say that probably 8 would work. At least with the quantities that we have, okay? Let's move that way. Right, so cut into 8, I would suggest. I'm gonna move mine over there. What we now do, hopefully logically with the pretzel, is we're gonna roll it into on the table. Right, so rough kind of snaky shape. So what we do is up there and then literally just kind of cross it over, all right? I think that's a bit of a cheats method of doing it, but that's fine. All right, so long and then round. At this point, can I just say, I need to turn the camera around, this camera here. All right, can you see the water boiling? Now what happens now is with your pretzel, and if not mine, a very badly shaped pretzel, you wanna put it on the spoon. Just gonna move this one around as well. 1 second. And you're in my simmering water, I'm just going to drop the pretzel. Now you literally need 10 seconds. Any more than that, the bicarb flavour will actually give it, or the bicarb will give it a slightly bitter flavour, which obviously you don't want. All right, so you need a baking tray. It's grease proof. If you haven't got grease proof, the world won't end. And what we do is we lift it out, and actually when you touch it, it's slightly set as well. And you're going to put that on the paper. All right, so you've poached it. Okay, and then we're going to work in a process. All right, so other pretzel on, in. And it really needs to stress, we're talking no more than 10-15 seconds. If you do any more than that, you'll actually taste the bicarb or the baking soda in there, and that's obviously not what you want at all. All right, I'm just going to twist back this way. And you can all laugh as I'm making my pretzels badly. All right, so just going a little, right, is everyone okay? I'm sure everyone's making their pretzels for about 11. All right, so oops, so you should make 8. Any problems? Tell me if there is. Don't forget the oven needs to be on. All right, it was only take 12 minutes. Okay, literally 12 minutes. So what we'll do is I will stop going live, obviously, after 12 minutes, but then go back on just to finish off. YouTube channel, Miss Upton, is oddly enough Cooking with Mr. Dix, exactly the same one. All right, Cooking with Mr. Dix. So like that, and then we just twist it over, like that. You do, where possible, need to seal the bottom, like the tails, because if you don't, whoops, if you don't, it will kind of fly apart, if that makes sense. Okay, so I'm going to notice how I put it in. I put mine on the spoon, in the water, and then I let it poach, again, for 10 seconds, all right, I can't stress that enough. 10 seconds only. 10 to 15. Well, that's a good question, Ava. How do you shape it like a pretzel? Right, so long sausage. The way that if you look at pretzels, let's take this one out 1 second. By the way, you might need 2 baking sheets. Okay, you may need 2 baking sheets. So if you look at the pretzel shape, it is like a sort of a heart, all right? So you're gonna go, I'm probably doing it wrong, but the way you go up and then cross it over, just literally just cross them over, all right, like that. One spoon and poach. I'll finish off. You probably will notice, by the way, when you're rolling out the pretzels, as you're getting near the end, they become more spongy, and that's because the yeast is, you know, kind of puffing up as well, it's activating. Right, so on my baking tray I have 4 done. Have a quick look. 4 done. I'm just going to do the other 4. So there's my tin. So 1. Everyone all right? Any probs? Okay, the baking powder simmering. That's what we're doing now, Miss Wright. So saucepan half full of water. You put the baking powder, or which it should be bicarb, but the baking powder 100 grams in, and you boil the water. And as the water's simmering, you drop in your bagel for 10 seconds only, lift it out and put it on a tray. Yeah, so put the bagels in the saucepan. Because you poach them. So the idea, I know it sounds weird, but we're going to poach them. So it's 2 cooking methods. We're poaching and then we bake. All right, you don't have to poach them. All right, if there's all a bit of stress and you can't be worried about it, but the poaching will give you that kind of pretzel texture. That's probably the best word for it. The pretzel texture. Is everyone okay? Any problems? Everyone online? Any issues? A large one there, didn't obviously. I've got one left. Any probs? Any issues? Everyone okay? Wonderful. Right. So last one. You feel that it's a nice texture, isn't it? The mixture when you're doing it. I think that pretzel's gone a bit weird, but that's fine. Okay, last one. For me at least. Excellent, well done, Kim's colourway. Right, don't forget, so oven on, 200 degrees, or gas mark 6. Then just wait for this to, isn't it? FC, I need to have a look clearer up. These will take, so make sure I say this really clearly, these will take 12 to 15 minutes. They're quite a quick cook, 12 to 15 minutes. While that's happening, while you're getting cleared up, what you need to get prepared is, if you want the cinnamon version, which I guess most people do, the sugar and cinnamon, in a bowl, you'll need some, guess what, some sugar and some cinnamon. I've got measurements, I did put measurements actually online. So what you need to do is you need to melt 60 grams of butter. Whoops, let's take this one out, which I forgot about. Hang on. So So, if you want the cinnamon ones, which I guess most people would, you want 60 grams of butter that's melted. So that's 4 tablespoons, 60 grams of butter. Just melt it in a pan like we did earlier. In a bowl, you just want some sugar and some cinnamon. If you want quantities, where are we? I'm looking. About 150 grams of sugar and about half a teaspoon. Oh, sorry, 1.5 teaspoons of sugar. All right, I will put that on Instagram if I get a second. All right, or when I see you again in 12, 15 minutes time. All right, so while you're waiting, get cleared up. You want to do 60 grams of butter, and in a separate bowl, you want some granulated sugar, 150 grams, or caster sugar, doesn't really matter, sugar, and a couple of teaspoons or 1.5 teaspoons of cinnamon, depends how cinnamony, that's not a word, but if you like it. All right, so, can I repeat everything, every single thing? Yeah, 200 is the oven temperature, all right, or that is gas mark 6, that's quite high. All right, so you've poached your pretzels, you're now going to clear up, they're going to go in the oven 12 to 15 minutes, they'll be puffy, they'll be brown. Have a clear up while you're waiting for that 12, 15 minutes, and while you're waiting, melt some more butter, 60 grams or thereabouts, and you want 100 grams of sugar and a couple of teaspoons, that's fine, of cinnamon, and then we'll be ready to the final stage when we rejoin in 12 to 15 minutes, okay? If I say I'll see you in 15, it gives a few minutes time to catch up. Is that all right? So, Alexa, set timer for 15 minutes. Alexa's gone deaf, but whatever. Okay, so I'll see you in 15 minutes, all right? So, take care. Yeah, put them in the oven, absolutely. So now put these in the oven to second cook, if you like, and I'll see you in 15 minutes, which will be 4:15. All right, see you in a bit, bye. If you haven't already, I've just melted 60 grams of butter, 4 tablespoons of butter in the pan. All right, so you will need next to you the butter and the sugar and the cinnamon. All right, pretty simple stuff. Well, if it's been 15, 20 minutes, then yes. Let me just have a look at mine, although mine have been... Actually, I did 20 minutes for mine, actually. So, let me have a look at mine. So that would be thereabouts. I think we've got about a minute left. If I turn it off, Alexa, turn the timer off.
15-minute timer cancelled.
Oh, okay. So actually, mine, I think I was a few seconds away. So you see, so mine are nice and brown. And actually, they've puffed up rather nicely. You see that? So, let me get the other tin out. Hang on. What you need to remember is that everyone's oven is different. Not everyone's oven is the same. Some will be quicker, some will be slower. It's just kind of the way it is, really. All you then do, how much sugar? The recipe says 150 grams of granulated sugar or caster sugar and 1.5 to 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. It's one of those things, doesn't really matter. All right, I think we've got some butter. That's fine, put yours back in a bit, brevity, no problem at all. Right, now the next stage is extremely obvious, and you've got 2 options now. One is, so option number 1, I've got a paintbrush because I'm a bit weird, but I use it with cooking, is you get your butter, let me move this over so you can see. Get your butter, brush the butter, be quite generous, liberal is the word. Get my pretzel and push it in, give it a real good coating. Make sure you get it all in the crevices because that's all the best bit. Yum. The other way, if you're not too worried about getting your hands a bit manky, pretzel, dip it in the butter, give it a whiz around, straight in the sugar, give it a good toss round, like a donut, kind of. There we go. Let me just tear one open. As you can see, all nice and cooked. I'll have a taste, why not? Oh, hot. Pretty good, actually. Not bad at all. So, when I stuff my face in my pretzel, hopefully you enjoyed that. Sorry, eating with a mouthful, that's very rude. Give me a minute. As always, I love seeing pictures. I love my inbox pinging, it's amazing. So, please send me pictures, cookingmrdicks@gmail.com. My day's been fine, thank you for asking. Very busy, but thank you. So, cookingmrdicks@gmail.com. When you've made them, sugar them, give them a taste, let me know how they are, what you think, and over the weekend, I decide what we're making. I have a thought already. Probably going to do a main dish with chicken arrabbiata with parmesan dumplings. I think it's a big thing on Facebook at the minute. Apparently one of the best dishes in the universe, so why not try that? Okay, I hope everyone's all right. How much sugar? Ava, about 150 grams. It doesn't matter. Enough to coat the. It doesn't really matter. Enough to coat the. Obviously, a little bit of cinnamon and more sugar. But it should be 150 grams of sugar and 1.5 to 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. Give it a little mix, 60 grams of butter, melt it, boom. Yeah, dunk it in actually, so give it a dunk, give it a cover, let it cool down. I'll probably not eat them while they're hot, but a little bit hot, not too hot, you get indigestion otherwise if you have them when they're too hot. I hope everyone's okay, and I will see you all later. And I'll see you next Friday. So see you all soon, have a wonderful weekend. Don't forget those pictures, cookingmrdicks@gmail.com. If you haven't subscribed to my TikTok, YouTube, obviously you probably have, or Instagram, it's all Cooking Mr. Dicks. And I would love to see you again. So see you soon, take care, bye.